Hi, and welcome to the prep video for the Learn to Knit series #1, the Garter Stitch. My name is Megan, and I am going to be instructing you on the garter stitch, which is basically just knitting on both sides of a garment. And here is our sample swatch that we're going to be making from the pattern. Here's the pattern as a little visual ahead of the 1-hour class that's going to be on Tuesday, Technique Tuesdays. I've got my size 10 needles to go with my bulky yarn, and we have the listed materials in the pattern. We've got chunky weight yarn used here for the bulk. The base I have here is Cascade Yarns. It's Anthem, and we're going to be using size 10. I like circulars. You can also use straight. And we've got a pattern, which written instructions. And then for fun, even though there's not a whole lot to do with the charts at this point, but I do have a chart to start getting people familiar with using them. If you haven't used them before, this is where we can start. The only stitch on here is knits, so there's no fancy symbols or anything, but it does get you familiar with being able to read the chart if you were going to follow along here and tick off the rows as you go. And then finally, a little bit about me and how we will travel, of which I am a co-owner with my bestie Lori, and she is the main dyer. We dye yarn, and I am doing pattern making and instructing. So that's a little bit about the handout. So let's go ahead and get started. This is meant to be just a preview of the class, something you can try before, if you prefer, to try to do the stitch ahead of the class. And if you're a prepared kind of person, like you like to prep ahead, for those who want to just go to dive into class at class time, that's okay too. So this is going to be just a little reference video that we can do, and instead of doing this entire swatch, we're going to do like a cast on, a couple rows, and then we're going to do cast off, just as an idea about all the techniques you're going to need for this particular swatch. All right, so let's get started. The number of stitches that it asks to cast on for this size of yarn to get the gauge is going to be 16 stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and just set my pattern aside, get my yarn out from my ball. I've got my needles. And there are a couple ways to cast on, but you can choose your preference. My personal favorite is long tail because I feel like it's kind of faster. But for this, maybe we'll do just a kind of a basic use your 2 needles to cast on the stitches. So first you want to do a slip knot. Get that created, put it on your one of your needles. And you don't need the tail too long, 5 or 6 inches is good. So this is going to fight me just a little bit. Okay, here we go. All right, so to do this method of the cast on, you want to have your tail off to the side, and then we're just going to be pulling yarn from the ball. And what we're going to do is, like the knitting stitch, we're going to insert the needle below the stitch on the needle, but also underneath the left-hand needle. So the right one's going to lie underneath the right-hand needle, is underneath the left-hand needle. We're going to bring the yarn around in between the 2 needles. Use the right-hand one to pull the yarn out from underneath the loop. Then we're going to twist and get that left-hand needle to pick up that stitch. And I'm using my pointer finger to help secure it. And now we have 2 stitches on our needle. So some people don't include the slip knot stitch, but I do, especially when it's just kind of like a test thing. If you have been taught not to do that, that's fine. You can just count your stitches. So you want to have 11, or sorry, we're doing 16, 17 stitches on here instead of 16, because when you knit back over, you're going to drop the slip stitch. All right, so we're just going to continue casting on the stitches. This yarn is a little grabby, so I'm going to try and make sure that my tension is fairly uniform, and adjust it and pull it out if I need to. And here we go. Okay, occasionally count 2, 4, 6, 10, 12. Got 4 more to do. Okay. All right, so that should be 16, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Okay, so we've cast on our 16 stitches, which is our first step in this pattern. So the next thing we want to do is knit the first row. So it's going to be all knit stitches. And this first row that we're going to be knitting is going to be considered our right side of the work. So as we go along, we'll want to treat one side as our right side, one as our wrong side. It's going to look the same pretty much on both sides, but it's good practice to get familiar with that as we start to incorporate new stitches as we go along in this series. So all right, so learning how to do the knit stitch. It's basically what we just did, but what we're gonna do here, instead of doing twisting, we're gonna drop it from this left-hand needle to the right-hand needle as we work it. So you insert the right-hand needle under the loop on the left-hand needle, and your right-hand needle should go behind the left-hand one. And then you're going to bring the yarn between the two, and then you're going to use the right hand needle to pull that yarn out. But instead of doing the twisting and everything, this time we're just going to let that stitch go off the left hand needle. And so now we just have one loop on the right hand one, and behind there, that's where the stitch used to be. And in the front, it kind of looks like a little void, a little V. So we're going to do that again. Insert the needle underneath the left-hand needle and loop the yarn around and pull the stitch off. And again, loop around the yarn and pull off. So we're going to do this all the way across. So I'm going to go ahead and keep working it. Insert the needle under the loop, under the left-hand needle, bring the yarn around between the two needles, and use your right hand needle to pull it up through, and you just kind of ease it off. And so you can see how the stitches are moving fairly easily on my right hand needle. They're a little less snug than they were over here. Casting on too tightly can make it more difficult to knit in, so it's good to keep your tension kind of uniform and not too tight as you go. I'm going to pull out a little bit more yarn. Okay, so keeping going, insert underneath the needle around, pull it off, insert under the loop and the left-hand needle, loop around, pull off, and we just keep doing that the whole way. if you find that you need a little bit more control with the yarn in your right hand, you can loop it around some of your digits to help control the action of the yarn as it slides through your hand. You can also hold very closely to the tips. I tend to hold much further back, but you can be like right up there on the tips. So let's demonstrate that. You go up and then it's just very closely here. Other people can hold the yarn here, and so like just so it loops over. So I'll show you that as well, like that. That for me, I have trouble like being a little too tight when I knit like that, but perfectly acceptable. All these ways work. Okay, and on the next pass, I'll show you what Continental looks like in case you want to see it in, that would be the left hand carry. All right, so we're gonna get to the end, knit our last stitch here, and we have one row. And so on the front here, it's going to be a little bit smoother, like laying down kind of like a flatter loop. And then on the back side, you'll see all these bumps. In garter stitch, you're going to have mostly the bumps visible. And that's because in between the rows, you get kind of that lay down flat, but the texture that's created using only knit stitches on both sides makes it really much more of this squiggly effect. All right, so we are going to do our row 2, and we will make our way back. And you want to make sure your end here is tucked to the side. So we are going to continue just doing the knit stitches all the way across. So I'm going to do halfway in the right hand carry, which is known as, I believe, English or German. And then that there are a lot of different ways to knit. If you take to the internet, there's Norwegian knitting that I've been keeping my eye on now, and lots of different method, Portuguese. Essentially, as long as you're kind of getting that same look, you can do a lot of different methods that they've just developed differently over time. All right, so this is the right hand carry. This is the one I'm most comfortable with, but to show you the left hand carry, if you want to experiment, so instead of having in your right hand, you'll have it over here in your left. I need to thread it around my fingers just a little bit to hold it up and kind of, again, control the tension where it's like looped around. And what you want to do is you're still going to go into the stitch the same way. So your right hand needle goes under the bar, under the left hand needle. So that's the same. But here you're going to be looping the needle to catch that yarn, and you're going to pull it through. All right. So you're going to more or less keep this back thread, the one that's attached to the ball, kind of a constant, and do more maneuvering with your needle this way. So I'll do another one of those in case you want to see it. And there you go. You go in and you grab it and bring it through. Okay. So on the back here, it looks, you can see these are the ones I did with my right hand carry, and this is with my left hand carry. So my tension's always a little different between the two methods, but the essential look is the same. So if you would like, we'll finish the this particular row with the Continental, and you can go through and grab them. Two more, and one more. Oops, and keeping the yarn behind the left hand needle is important, because that's where you're going to want to grab it with your right hand needle. Okay, and again, you can use all of your fingers to help make these stitches possible. Nobody's going to be policing you on that. Accessibility to make this stuff happen and make it ergonomic and not stressful on your body is the most important thing. All right, so we are going to do 2 more rows and then we're gonna cast off. So make sure you've got your yarn. I'm just kind of pulling it from a ball over here by the side. So you have plenty of yarn and you're not having to kind of fight to get it off of the ball. I find that when I do, when it's too tight coming off of the ball, my tension in the work changes and it gets a little too tense. So having plenty available is good. All right, so we're just going to continue doing the knit stitches. And you can move around your stitches like I just did, maneuver them on the needles whenever you need a little extra help to get them in where you want them on the needles. You can drag them around a little. You can also smooth them down to the right. I'm using bamboo needles for this. It gives it a little bit of a drag. If you have metal needles, they tend to kind of slide on their own, but they are a little slippery. Okay, so that was my second knit row on the right hand side, and then this will be my wrong hand side that we're going to do 1 more row, and then we will cast off. Okay, so 1 more of these, and I'll do the Continental if you would like to see that, just as a change. You could see both methods. So I'm going to hold it in the yarn in my left hand, so it's kind of held up, and then make sure my yarn end is out of the way. So I'm going to go in the back behind the stitch and behind the other needle, and I'm going to grab that yarn and just kind of pull it through, and I'm going to go up and then grab the yarn and pull it through. At the beginning of the row, it's a little easier you might need your pointer finger to kind of help out to guide things to get started. All right, and we're going to go this way. Looks like we have a bonus little fuzzy here. I'll take that off before it gets knit in. Oops. And so my finger got a little too far away from the needles, so we'll just do that, readjust as needed. And I hope what's fun about seeing somebody who is also kind of learning how to do things that are not as familiar to them is it shows too that there's a lot of ways that you can do things, and there's no wrong way, and we're all learning. So it's funny, I can do Continental stitch while I am not talking to anybody except for myself, obviously, in the video. But when I'm trying to talk to somebody or demonstrate it and there's another like human live watching, I don't tend to do so good with it. So I do tend to teach as much as possible with the right hand carry when I do classes, just so it goes a little faster for everybody. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and finish up these last few stitches with the right hand, just to get that over. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and pretend that all of these stitches, these rows have already been done, and now it is time to bind off. So we are going to follow directions on the pattern, which are knit 2. This is one way of casting off, which is if you keep it fairly loose, it's fairly elastic, so it should not be too tight when you do it. But there are certainly other stretchy bind offs that you can also learn that help keep the shape, you know. So like say if I did this too tight, it might be a little puckered at the bottom. So you want to try and keep it loose enough that it matches the shape that you're going for. Okay, so I have started the cast off lines and I've knit 2. What I'm going to do is take the left hand needle and kind of pluck it underneath the stitch that's furthest to the right on the right hand needle, and I'm gonna just lift it over and off. So now I have only one stitch on my right hand needle, and then we're going to do one more knit 1. So I have 2 stitches again on my right hand needle. Same maneuver, you just kind of take the left hand needle, take the furthest to the right stitch and kind of jog it over and off. So now I have this bind off edge, and we're just going to repeat that all the way across. And as needed, you just maneuver the stitches around. I can tell my ball is not quite, I don't have enough yarn tucked off. So I'm going to tuck off some more yarn because I can feel it getting a little tense over here. Like these 2 stitches are a little tighter than the ones before. So if you find that happening, you can do the same. Just sort of give yourself a little extra room, you know, tug on it a little. And we're gonna, oops, that one wanted to come off. And we're gonna knit. Jog that one up and over. And continue. All right, and one more. This one split just a little on my needle with the yarn. It'll do that. Okay, so your last stitch, you can go ahead and remove your needles now. And what you would do is you would cut this piece of yarn. That's my first tail. You would cut the yarn attached to the ball, and then you would pull it through this last loop here, and then that would cinch it up. So what we have here is a little mini strip that will become this if you complete the pattern. And so this is just a little preview of the class that we're going to have to learn the garter stitch. And I hope you have good success if you practice in advance. And if not, I will see you at class and we'll do it all there live. Thank you.